So delighted to be joined by Kildare Footballer Kevin Feely. We're going to have a look ahead to the weekend's All-Ireland football semi-finals. Kevin, you were one of the few players that got the chance, obviously, to play inter-county football in whatever the month of October, November. First of all, how did you find it? Was it a strange experience with no crowds there?
Yeah, the no crowds thing was strange. I suppose we got a kind of small taste of it with the club football as well, with the limited crowds, and but in general, I found it very enjoyable. I think, like you said, we're definitely one of the lucky ones being able to keep going with our sport and having that release that a lot of people weren't able to get at kind of sub-elite level. So and the fact that kind of everything was reduced down to basically just training on the pitch and that's it. Like, no extra meetings and group gym sessions. You were just kind of getting done whatever you could on your own, and it kind of took it back to the old days a little bit. And it was in general, it was extremely enjoyable. And to be fair, the matches themselves, once you get invested in them, you wouldn't really notice the lack of a crowd there. It didn't really seem to affect the atmosphere all that much on the pitch. But I know it's difficult to watch, but the matches themselves to play were still really enjoyable.
Yeah, obviously from the outside, what like the week before was the league starting, there was a lot of concerns maybe from the public, and you could see a lot of people didn't want to go ahead. Was there any concerns from yourself or within the panel, or were you always happy to play ahead?
I think, I remember the GPA did a survey kind of the week or two before the start of the championship, and the kind of thing everyone was worried about really was, were there going to be enough kind of safety protocols in place to make sure it was safe for players and staff and management. And once we got those assurances, it was absolutely grand. Like there was never any doubt then that we were going to be keeping going with it. So it was really just about getting those assurances, and then we were always going to be happy enough to go ahead with it.
And then in terms of the football itself, you kind of had a mixed bag. You finished the league well. You got two good wins against Cavan and Westmeath, and you obviously bet awfully. I suppose the Meath game was probably a disappointment because it was a big game probably for both teams. That kind of, we know Dublin are ahead of everyone else, but just to reaching that Leinster final is progress in itself.
Yeah, it was a huge disappointment. All right, we would have absolutely. I know Meath didn't kind of do themselves justice against Dublin, but we would have loved to have gotten a crack at them. But it's just one of those days. It's weird. We played probably our best half of football in the whole year in the first half, and how we controlled things, and we created a lot of chances. We even missed a lot of chances, but still went in 6 points up, and we were pretty solid defensively. So it was. I think we just got we were just a little bit in shock there at the start of the second half. A couple of two or three kind of individual errors that you maybe can't always account for, that are just sometimes they happen. And they're a good enough team, they were able to punish us maybe, whereas against some of the lower ranked teams, those mistakes weren't getting punished as severely as Meath punished us. So very disappointing, obviously, but I don't think it was a huge systems failure. I think it was just a couple of individual mistakes that Meath did very well to punish us from, and in the end, they kind of knocked the stuffing out of us. So they fully deserved it. Couldn't really argue with that.
Yeah, and obviously after the Leinster final, I mean, former Westmeath footballer John Cannellan obviously put out an open letter. A lot of people have seen it as I suppose brought up the yearly debate nearly about Dublin and the Leinster Championship. Is it hard when you see, I mean, Meath are a decent team, obviously, you are as well, and Meath deserve to get to the final in the end, but like the way Dublin just powered past them, the gap is probably huge. Like from a player's point of view, what do you make of it at the moment?
Yeah, it's hard to know really. It just seems like physically Dublin are just absolute supreme athletes. Like they come across as as athletic and as fast and strong as any full-time professional athlete you see. But in every county you'll have a handful of lads like that, where it just seems like they've got 15 and then 6 more coming off the bench every game, like which it's demoralising, but at the same time, I do think that they put in the work in the last 10, 12 years to achieve that, I think, and they're reaping the rewards of it, and they kind of set a template of how to do things and how to structure things underage, and to get the best out of the younger players with the aim of developing them for when they're senior, not really worried about results as much as under 16 and minor or whatever. And I think in Leinster, the counties have already started to kind of put those templates in underage, and just from being involved with in the medical team at under 20 and minor level, and doing a bit of S&C work with development squads, I can see already a huge difference in the approach to how they're developing players in Kildare anyway. And we've already had two or three guys stepping up from minor and under 20 last year who are physically in a different world to where, for example, I would have been at 19 years old. So hopefully Dublin have kind of set the example and set the template. And at the moment, it might seem like we're miles away, but I'm hoping that, given a bit of time and continued underage success, that the next kind of batch of Meath and Kildare and Westmeath and all the rest of them, next batch of those players will be a lot more up to par with where Dublin are now.
Yeah, well, they are far ahead as well. And then a lot of this talk, then people say, give Dublin a bye, let everyone else play out. But that you wouldn't feel like you're the best team in Leinster then. And then if you scrap it, you have to scrap the other provinces. So it's a tough debate nearly to have.
Yeah, well, I think they're taking action. The fixtures task committee or the task force committee for fixtures they've come up with a few different ideas, and they look pretty good and pretty fair. For maybe not this year, but the year after, which might address those issues that we're having at the moment. So, I'm not overly worried about it, because I know that the GA and the GPA are working hard on how to kind of remedy the one side and the sub a little bit. So it looks positive in that regard.
Yeah, in terms of this weekend's games, you probably have to say, if there is going to be an upset, it'll probably come on Sunday with Mayo against Tip. Obviously, they met a few times. 2016, they were both in the semi-final, and Mayo just came out on top. But Tipperary will not fear Mayo. Obviously, you have experience nearly from the Newbridge game as well. Is there that fear with Mayo compared to maybe Dublin, that Mayo they always give a team a chance? Well, I know they've won a lot of games, but they always give a chance to a team to come back or be competitive in the game.
Yeah, I think so. There definitely wouldn't be the same fear as when you're playing Dublin, and I think that you hit the nail on the head there with what Tip did last time they met in Championship, where they really put the frighteners up them, and I know that match seemed to actually drive Mayo on to much better performance afterwards. But a lot of the guys playing this weekend would have been involved in that game on the Tip side of things, and a few on the Mayo side, and Tip will know that if they can keep it tight and keep it a contest for 40-45 minutes, that once it's tight in the last few minutes, they've shown already that they're extremely resourceful, and they'll battle to the very end, and they've come out on the right side of a couple of crunch games already this year. So if they can keep it tight for that length of time, there's nothing to say that they don't have the quality to cause a bit of an upset there. But at the same time, it's a new Mayo team as well. There's a lot of new faces there who seem to be making an extremely positive impact on it. So they're not carrying maybe that kind of fear or that attitude from previous years of not always performing against the teams considered that wouldn't be up to the same standard as them. So they look pretty good, Mayo, to be honest, and there hasn't been a huge amount of talk about them in the last couple of weeks, which will suit them down to the ground, I think. So as much as Tip will definitely turn it into a fight, I just fancy with Mayo, with the new players they've brought in, they probably have a little bit too much for them,
Yeah, because it is not just affected Tipperary, but it is a huge opportunity to Mayo to get to another All-Ireland final with even, Kerry definitely gone out, and Cork to a certain extent. And it is a new team for Mayo, but I suppose they haven't got that All-Ireland, so the pressure and Mayo for Sam and from the fans and all that will start again once they get to if they get to a final. So there is always that pressure with Mayo that they haven't delivered that All-Ireland just yet.
Yeah, but I agree with you that I think that pressure might come if they win this game, but it doesn't seem to be doesn't seem to be there at the moment. I think that's just a byproduct of the kind of freshness that has been brought into the team with the new players. I think there's nearly an acceptance in Mayo that it could take a couple of years for these guys to fully bed themselves into intercounty football, and they're probably exceeding expectation at the moment. But the nature of this year's championship was that momentum was always going to be a huge thing, and like, by God, Mayo have momentum at the moment. Like, so that's huge thing for young players. So that's why, and that, like I said, that lack of expectation for them to be brilliant will probably work in their benefit, and especially as well with no crowds there as well. There's not that added kind of intensity of people shouting and roaring abuse at you as well. You just basically play to your own tune, like without much outside influence, and that can be really, really beneficial, especially with younger guys.
How big an impact would say Mayo played obviously Division 1, and then they played for Scotland and Galway in the Connacht Championship, and obviously Tipperary, they played Clare, Limerick and Cork, who've just come out with Division 3. I know Cork by Kerry. Like, how you played Division 1 football, is it a big advantage playing them higher standard teams, and it'll stand to you, whereas Tipperary haven't played them?
Yeah, like before what happened a couple of weekends ago, I would have said absolutely, like that. There's definitely the top five or six teams in the country when it comes to the league are just playing at a different intensity and pace to everyone else, and I would have said that the majority of the times those six teams, unless they meet each other, they're going to get to the last 8 or last 4, and but then Cavan, I suppose Cavan are up there as well now. They upset Donegal or whatever, but Tip are just carrying an unbelievable belief in them at the moment. Whether like there's a lot of it will be history, and they're carrying that extra, that extra bit of motivation that sometimes makes the difference in championship matches. And like I said, the knockout nature of this year seemed to really stand to them, and what they have is just huge belief there. But before the kind of what happened on last weekend, I would have said being in Division 1 makes all the difference there, and that they are genuinely at a different level to the other teams, and more battle hardened and more used to playing at a higher tempo for longer periods of time. And to be honest, like, I do still think that's going to be the case this weekend. I don't think Tip will last the pace that Mayo can bring to it for the full game, because I think even if you look at the Munster final, Cork didn't play at a ferocious pace. That kind of didn't bring the huge intensity that maybe they brought a little bit to the Kerry match. And whereas Mayo, like you said, have been playing games at a terrific intensity, like going from the end of Division 1 and carrying into the championship. So I think the last 15 minutes is where we'll see it kind of starting to have an effect on the Tip players. But hopefully it's as tight and exciting as it has been up to now. Like, Jesus Christ, it was that was some weekend of football in the provincial finals.
Yeah, and if Tip are to have a chance, you'd have to think that the two main men up front, Conor Sweeney and Michael Quinlivan, will have to have big games like that against Cork. It was nearly, they were going back in time nearly with that Cork performance. It brought back memories maybe against the Galway game in 2016. They are two forwards that would get in most county teams across the country.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly, and that is somewhere they could potentially hurt Mayo as well, just in their size. Like, Mayo's full back line aren't huge, kind of way. They're extremely good defenders. They're very fast, and what I think has been huge for them is that they're all extremely comfortable on the ball, and they come out with the ball brilliantly. But Tip will always leave Quinlivan and Sweeney and Coleman Kennedy up. They'll never bring those three back, and that'll kind of force Mayo to not be able, maybe not commit their full back line and half back line forward as much as they have been doing. And just with Tip's kind of willingness to play diagonal balls and to chance kind of 50-50 balls, and then the ability of the two boys, Sweeney and Quinlivan, to win them, which is fairly rare in this day and age, to have forwards who are that good at winning their own ball. I think Tip could cause problems that way, and they will need to be scoring goals, I think. And those guys certainly provide that platform for them. But I think it's interesting as well, because I'd say both teams prefer to be out of possession and working on counter-attacking football. So it'll be interesting to see which way the possession side of things goes. Like, I think Cork probably dominated possession against Tip, which would have been part of Tip's game plan because they forced them into errors and then were extremely good on the counter-attack. And Mayo have been doing that for years and are brilliant at it. And especially with the new pace they have coming from their midfield and half-back line. So it'd be interesting to see if Tip maybe close up shop for a while and force Mayo to be patient in attack and in possession. Will their younger players kind of get a bit impatient on the ball and start forcing things into O'Shea? You know, it would be interesting to see how that turns out because I think they have similar styles. So that could be something that would work in Tip's favour, you know.
Yeah, and like in terms of Mayo, like one player that I always discussed where she plays Aidan O'Shea, now he'd be midfield, half forward, full forward. Like you played midfield, but I think you've been close to goal at times as well. Like where do you see his best position? We probably haven't seen it in the kind of championship, the effect that he could have in a full forward line.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen the effect he can have at full forward, but we have seen what it's done for the other Mayo players. And I think that can never be underestimated that when he's in there full forward, it draws so much of the attention of the defence, and that just the space seems to open up elsewhere. And I don't think it's any surprise that Cillian O'Connor's having such a good championship when he's not being totally relied upon as a ball winner. He can kind of time his runs to be coming on to the end of the moves rather than having to work ferociously hard to win ball all the time. And I think having O'Shea in there really benefits Mayo's forwards in that sense. I think he plays his best football at centre forward as kind of a deep centre forward. I think he's brilliant there. But probably for the good of the team, he'll be full forward again. And Jimmy Feeny will have it if he's left full back on him. I don't know if that'll be the case. This time it'll be a lot more of a danger. I think Mayo will be more likely to put ball into him just because there's a little bit of a mismatch there if Tip leave things as they are in the full back line. So this weekend could be the match that O'Shea starts to have a big impact in terms of winning ball and scoring, you know.
Yeah, because even the Roscommon match, I think we put 2 or 3 on him, and he didn't do a lot. But obviously, Cillian O'Connor had a great game. Tommy Conroy now is another forward who can get 2-3 points in play, and obviously the usual Kevin McLaughlin, Jeremy O'Connor. So they do have options. Oh
yeah, huge options. And Kevin McLaughlin's another one who I haven't seen playing as well in a long time, and probably he's been moved about a bit. You know, been tried as a sweeper, as more of a deeper line wing forward. Whereas he seems to have just got into his head to go back to his old ways of playing of taking on his man more and taking shots when they're on and being the playmaker that he's well capable of being. So I think definitely the shape that Mayo have in their forward line at the moment is, you know, as potent as it has been a long time.
So on that one, you see Mayo by a few?
Yeah, Mayo by 4 or 5, I think, yeah.
And then the other one is Dublin Cavan on Saturday. Now, I haven't seen a team as strong favourites going in an All-Ireland semi-final ever. I think Dublin are 1 to 100 to win this one. But from a Cavan point of view, obviously it's been a dream year for them, and to a certain extent they won't really care if they get beaten by 10 plus. They've achieved what they've set out to achieve for the last 23 years, and that's win an Ulster title, and they've had a great year regardless what happens.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, that they might be approaching it with that nothing to lose attitude. But just from knowing a couple of the guys in the squad and that, I don't think they'll be sitting on the laurels and saying that's our season done. You know, I think that they feel like the momentum they're carrying into this season, that this is as good a chance as any that they'll have to beat Dublin. You know, it's not called a spade here. It's to expect Dublin to win, but interestingly, I do think Cavan have strengths where Dublin have minor weaknesses. We won't call them weaknesses because they're Dublin, but it's said every year about Dublin's full back line that they're not the biggest. Tommy Galligan's is he's in line for Player of the Year at the moment, the way he's going, and he's not just occupying a defender in there. He's winning a huge amount of ball in the full forward line. Now I know he's coming out to midfield a lot as well, and he's winning kickouts. But you don't know who will pick him up. Like, would it be? I don't know. Actually, out of the full back line there, you could see John Small going back in on him. But then that normally you'd expect Small to pick up Gerald McKiernan because he'd probably be playing centre forward. So they've got, and there's no kind of obvious match up there outside of that. You know, it'll probably end up with Fitzsimons on Galligan, and if the right ball goes in, that Cavan have been doing, you know, especially with the new mark, like, you know, sometimes it's just a matter of winning it these days and to score. So that could be a huge problem for Dublin. But as well in the kind of half back line, Cavan have a lot of pace and to deal with the Buglers and the Scullies of the world. I know Jared Smith is having an unbelievable year as well, and he brings a huge attacking threat to the way Cavan are playing at the moment. So that'll kind of hopefully for them occupy one of those Dublin forwards, whether it be Scully or Bugler got injured actually in the last game. There's a good chance probably it could be Brian Howard in there, but either way he'll be keeping one of them occupied. So Cavan definitely have the tools to cause a bit of damage, but it's just the kind of everywhere else on the pitch is probably Dublin match up quite well in terms of their speed and their just precision in attack. Donegal had a lot of wides, a lot of drops short against Cavan. It wasn't the case that they were struggling to get shots off. They just their percentage wasn't great, and Dublin are consistently in the 60 and 70% scoring percentage. Like, so they, you know, I just think Cavan will draw strength from the fact that they see a few potential weaknesses in Dublin that they can exploit with the players they have. You know.
Yeah, because you've mentioned Brian Howard, like you have Brian Howard, Paul Mannion, Cormac Costello, like these sort of players on the bench to have coming on. You know, it just shows how strong the Dublin panel is.
Yeah, and coming on and looking so good, like it's hard to see where they lost form to end up losing their spot. Like, what did they do wrong to lose it? But you can only imagine then what the trainer is just to be trying to get a starting place in the team. I'd imagine it means a huge amount to be told you're starting when you're taking someone like Paul Mannion's place or Brian Howard's place, and like, you know, I would have thought going into this year Brian Howard was going to be like one of the best players in the country, and it turned out he couldn't get in the team in Dublin, and so it just goes to show, you know. And obviously Paddy Small coming off the year he's had with Ballymun, you couldn't begrudge him a starting place, and he's been brilliant since the inter-county has started up again. So but it just must be disheartening for a cornerback you might keep Paddy Small quiet for 45, 50 minutes, and then you see the pace of Mannion coming on, and it's tough going, you know. So no, Cavan will play defensive, no doubt about it. It's just a matter of in Croke Park, can they block up enough gaps to frustrate Dublin, and then on the attacks they do have on the counter attack, can they use the likes of McKiernan and Galligan, and then the pace of the Smiths. Maybe Conor Madden would be another great option in there as well for ball winning ability. He'd have that aerial ability that they could exploit Dublin's full back line a bit. So they'll be shutting up shop, no doubt. But and if they can kind of do a bit of damage on the counter attack, you never know.
Yeah, like from a player's point of view, is it just getting a performance against Dublin, or if you were playing them now, would you be thinking, right, we're going for the win, or is it performance?
I know I know what you're saying. It tends to be after the game, after your best, that you look for the positives and you say, well, at least we performed pretty well. But beforehand, there's no talk of that. You know, it's always how can we beat Dublin? It's not how can we play well against them. And Cavan will be absolutely no different. They'll be thinking only in terms of how to beat them, and they could frustrate them. Monaghan have frustrated Dublin very well in the past. Donegal equally, and there does seem to be the Ulster teams tend to be able to keep them to lower scores, probably just the style of play. Outside of Mayo, of course, are just probably as close to their level as anyone else. But so hopefully Cavan can sing off that same hymn sheet, but still have enough about them in the forwards to cause a bit of damage up top as well,
Yeah, there was a bit of talk about the pitch like the day after Cavan won the Ulster. I know it was never going to be moved out of Croke Park, but from a player's point of view, would you rather play Dublin in Croke Park or say a neutral venue, maybe like a Portlaoise or something? Because I've definitely seen even Roscommon last year, we played them in the league, we lost by 4, we both Croke Park and Super 8 and lose by 20. So Dublin and Croke Park seem like a different animal altogether.
Yeah, it's hard one because you can't argue with the facts of that, like that. Well, it's an All-Ireland semi-final. I don't think you can justify it being taken out of Croke Park. I think Leinster semi, a qualifier, and All-Ireland quarter-final. There's more justification there. But I think it's just it's more to do with the openness of Croke Park. It's the size of it. It suits Dublin because athletically they're that much better than everyone else. That with more space they tend to do more damage. Whereas like when we play teams in Newbridge and Connacht, it's quite a tight pitch. Similar when we say, for example, when we played Mayo in 18. I'm sure they would have rathered it be in Croke Park with a bit more space. We were able to kind of deny them the kind of space that they love having, and I think it's when Dublin are brought to similar areas, they usually win, but they don't win it by as much because teams are able to keep things a bit tighter for longer. But I think that the size of the pitch in Croke Park plays right into their hands. But I don't disagree with them playing the semi-final in Croke. I think every All-Ireland semi's been there, apart from that replay down in Limerick, wasn't it? There was a replay down there, but no, you couldn't. There'd be no real justification for that, I don't think.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Thomas Gallagher. Probably from Dublin point of view, their player of the year has been Kieran Kilkenny, I'd argue. He's definitely looked as good as he ever looked, and that's saying something. He's playing a lot closer to goal, and he's racking up 4 or 5 points from play every game. So, and you've obviously Fenton, like they're probably the two that Cavan, to even increase their chances if they can take Fenton and Kilkenny's influence off the game even a tiny bit.
Yeah, it's definitely increases your chances, that no doubt. I don't know whether Desi Farrell has kind of said to Kilkenny about changing his style of play. I think under Gavin he was definitely deeper. He was getting an awful lot more possessions and he was passing the ball an awful lot more. But like you said, playing that top of the D position, he's much more of a scoring threat, and it goes to show people forget how good of a scorer he was as when he was 21, 22. Like he used to be racking up massive scores, and we're getting a bit of a reminder of that this year, and it's definitely suiting him. Fenton will be a worry because I don't know who to have there to match up to him. I know in the league they play Port Faulkner in midfield, and he's a good man marker. But can you afford to take him out of the full back line, or because they're not strong in there? And I think I had James Smith and Killian Brady there, probably natural defenders, which might just get told to do a total man marking job, try and spoil kickouts, and just match Fenton for his running power as much as they can. But I think whoever is picked to man mark him won't last the game and will need someone else to come in and help them after whatever period of time it is that they lose their legs. But I think what's so great about the way Dublin play and with Fenton midfield is that he doesn't have to waste energy too much defensively or worry about getting too involved in the build-up. He's really good at timing his runs to the absolute kind of perfect time to be coming off the shoulder of the full forward line, he's very clever at realising when the man that's on him is a bit tired after maybe doing a long burst and run, and that's when he'll choose to go at him and he'll fly by him, not a bother. He's a brilliant ball carrier. So I think that's an area of concern for Cavan, is do they have enough man markers to kind of spread around the pitch to do jobs on certain players like that. And hopefully they do again. Just hopefully they do, because it'd be brilliant if it was another tight match. And like I said, given the way things went a couple of weekends ago, why couldn't that happen again? But I think that'll definitely be a big concern for Cavan.
Yeah, I mean, lastly on Dublin, you'd have to probably think Mayo are the only team realistically that could go toe to toe. And that's no disrespect to Cavan or Tipperary at all. As I said before, they've had great years, but it's probably Mayo or nothing that's going to stop this 6 in a row now.
Yeah, I think if you're thinking about things logically and without your heart and just using your head, yeah, that's the case. And I would actually I'd be very excited. Sorry, but I'd be raging at the way the season has gone, but I actually would be excited for the final if Dublin and Mayo get to the final, because I do think Mayo are Kerry. I thought were going to be the ones this year, but Mayo just seem to have the athletes this year to match Dublin for pace and power to a certain regard. But just that kind of freshness and eagerness that the new players have brought to the thing in Mayo has made a huge difference, and I would be very excited. I think that could potentially be a great All-Ireland final.
Yeah, well, hopefully we get 2 exciting games like we got a couple of weeks ago anyways. But Kevin, thanks very much for coming on.
No hassle at all, anytime.